Hey, how's it going, guys? You're listening to another audio commentary by Vol. Now, this game is actually between a friend of mine, Fonger, and a very well-known Terran player by the name of Strelok. So I'll just say a few things about each of these players to introduce you guys. The replay is actually in 1 times speed. I've had a lot of people whining about 2 times speed, and this game's only, not that long. So I'm sure we'll get through it in a good amount of time. Anyway, we've got Strelok in white at the bottom position and Fonger in the as the orange Terran. We've got a mirror matchup, Terran versus Terran, at the top left. The map is Longinus, and as I was saying before, Fonger is in the SMI team, and he's also a New Zealand player. I've played a number of games with him, and he's a friend of mine. Pretty good player. I've only beat him like a couple of times, and those weren't really convincing games, and he's beaten me a lot of times. And but yeah, all good fun. And here we've got Strelok, who is a Bulgarian player. He's in the team XLO, and this game is actually taking place in the new Team Liquid Star League, which I'm participating in as well. I don't expect to get very far, but it's going to be a fun league. Encourage anybody who is familiar with Team Liquid, or even if you're not, just to sign up and participate. What I'm doing is basically just to play in it and then just see how far I can get in terms of the ranking, and then just try again next season and see if I can do better. It's just a good way to participate and play some good games. But yeah, coming back to the game, we've got Strelok just putting down a barracks and probably a refinery now. Both players just starting with a fairly basic build. Don't think that you'll see anything cheesy going on here. Both players, no reason really to try anything desperate. But I think it'll be a while before we see any differentiation in their builds. We've got Terran versus Terran, which is one build, one size fits all, until you get to the point where you're building either a factory or deciding to expand very quickly, or what have you. A lot of SCVs queued up there, but yeah, Terran versus Terran, very interesting matchup. A lot of people actually find it a bit boring, but I find it to be a very interesting matchup because of the tactical aspect of it. Map positioning is really interesting once you get into the mid game, and there's a lot of tanks and possibly mines and dropships going around. You've really got to think about just the location and position of where your buildings are, where your troops are, where you're going to move next, where your opponent's expanding. And I think that it's a little bit less clear cut than in some other matches. That's partly why I enjoy it a lot. And we've got both players scouting right now, both going to the empty start location at the right-hand side. This is a 3-player symmetry map, by the way. Not sure if you noticed before, but Fonger made 2 Marines and Strelok made 1, so we'll see how that works out. And something very subtle just happened there. Strelok was keeping an eye on a scout and noticed Fonger coming down to this location on the right, and instantly realized that, by deduction, that Fonger will be at the top left, and Fonger hasn't even realized. So I guess that's just a little subtle thing that maybe good players are quicker at and more likely to spot. And we've got Fonger here with a Vulture coming out. Strelok has now spotted the 2 Marines. I don't think he'll get past those 2. Fonger immediately going for Vultures, and we've got a barracks heading out. I think it's well ahead of Fonger's barracks. Armory, yeah. So we've got Armory going down first by Strelok, as well as 2 factories. Neither of them going for a quick expansion, and this is quite interesting. The real differentiation in this build is that Strelok's got the Armory down first, and there are 2 things that's good for. One thing is really good at preventing wraiths if they show up unexpectedly. You can get Goliaths out really quickly. The other reason why Goliaths are really useful is that if both players are going for a real sort of early pressure game, as they are with Vultures and a couple of Marines, then Goliaths are actually an extremely good unit. That's until the tanks show up, and it takes a lot longer to get tanks, and you've got to commit a bit more, so there's a really nice window of opportunity to actually use Goliaths in the early game, and a lot of people don't realize that, but it is definitely true. And both players with a fair amount of Vultures, but Fonger is definitely ahead with the Vultures, getting the speed upgrade first, just so you'll have a mobility advantage. And as you see, Strelok's actually outnumbered in terms of vultures, and Fonger's actually able to chase quickly and pick off a vulture, so he's actually got an advantage at this point. But oh, here's something else that's a little bit subtle. Sending in Marine just to distract the vultures while his own vultures get away. And when the Goliaths show up, the Goliaths are more than a match for the vultures. They're just a much better unit when it comes down to a straight fight, and Fonger hasn't actually upgraded any mines yet, so he'll be able to take out these vultures fairly easily. Going in for some SCV sniping at the back, hopefully getting a few kills, but you might have noticed there that he didn't actually stay targeting on enough of those mines for long enough, and he only really picked off 2 SCVs that I counted. Probably could have got 3 or 4, but not too big a deal. Still got Goliath pumping for Strelok, and Fonger's got a barracks finally down to see what's happening. Now going for the expansion. Fonger's also following suit and getting expansion. It's really important to get an expansion ASAP if there's no more room, no more window for rushing and so on. And that's what's happening. Fonger's still going for vultures. Excuse me. What we're seeing here is the Goliath's actually walling in the base. Just he's worried that the vultures will start building up and just run past and lay mines and stuff. Definitely not going to happen when the Goliaths are arranged like that. So Fonger rightly not trying to break through and just putting mines around the entrance just to buy himself some time and try and take a bit of control of the map. That's an interesting thing about the difference between Goliaths and vultures. In little skirmishing fights, the Goliaths are definitely going to win. You've got an advantage, but with vultures, it gives you also a window of time during the game where you have control of the map, and that can be a bit of a difference. What you're seeing here is Fonger is actually putting down some mines because he is scared that Strelok will be using a dropship to bring Goliath into his base and kill his SCVs. But I'm really interested in the placement of that single mine, as you can see that I've got selected there, next to the SCVs. If Strelok was actually to drop a Goliath there, he could actually drag that mine into the SCVs, and because they're so tightly packed, he'd actually get a lot of kills. So possibly a little bit careless there by Fonger. I'm not sure. I mean, when you're playing a game quickly, you've got to make decisions fast and you've got to really act and play as fast as possible. It's easy to make really, really minor errors like that, and maybe it won't even turn into an error. Maybe Strelok won't even drop any Goliaths. Maybe he won't drop them in that particular position. We'll see. Alright, so game moving into the phase where we see a lot of tanks, and that's inevitable in any Terran versus Terran really that goes past a certain length. But what he's just cautious of is the fact that Fonger's got vultures there, which have laid a lot of mines down outside of space, so he's not moving out too quickly. Got a starport now, and indeed building a dropship. It's generally a good idea in Terran versus Terran matchups, unless you've got a really good reason not to build dropships. Dropships are almost a default thing, because when the tanks really set up and put locks everywhere, just in terms of their location, there's no way to really get around the map except by dropships, and it's an excellent way to put pressure on your opponent and to respond to unexpected attacks as well. Now, Fonger pushing forward with a superior ground force in terms of tanks, but as you can see, Strelok has indeed opted to take a load of Goliaths into Fonger's base. I'm not sure if he has used a scam, but if he has, he will have seen those mines and actually bringing the Goliaths in behind the middle line where there are no mines and shooting down those SCVs. So this is giving him a little bit of an advantage right now. Meanwhile, he's getting his expansion up cleverly at the island, island expansion with a ramp at the bottom right. With a double gas, and that's really important. If you're going for Goliaths and a lot of tanks, that's a really gas intensive build, and having those double gas vents there is really effective. And because Fonger hasn't actually built any Goliaths at all, that dropship has got free reign over his base. But we should be seeing some soon because he's got an armory there, and he's just able to really sort of mess Fonger's forces around. I mean, Fonger hasn't actually got a third expansion yet, and this is buying Strelok a lot of time. Once that third expansion kicks in, he'll be able to get a lot of tanks and Goliaths, and things should be looking pretty rosy for him. I really like this play by Strelok here, actually blocking off the ramp with the engineering bay and a supply depot. In a game versus tanks and Goliaths, that probably wouldn't even be needed, but because, again, Fonger has opted for speed upgraded vultures, he's just worried that A lot of vultures will stream in and lay mine next to the tank, so that's not going to happen with his buildings in the way, and his expansion's pretty safe until Fonger gets dropships, but because Fonger hasn't even got a starport yet, Strelok's expansion is really safe. And this is interesting as well, actually repairing the Goliaths. He really cares that much about having a full health, a lot of troops, and he feels like he has the time for it. He's repairing them, and why not? I mean, repairing units is a really good way to go if you're in a